Uh, all right, so back again for our nightly funsies. Here we go. First question, we have a product question. Second question, we got wills and trusts. And we'll start out with the easy one. And that is we'll go to WinFlex real quick here. Um, and I will share with you North American. So we have North American as one of our primary carriers. Great company. And what they have is a few options in product. So the first one I would say is as you look at North American, you'll see, all right, so their term chassis, it's great. Very competitive in the market, even compared to like the QOL product. Builder Plus 4 is their new accumulation product. You see Protection Builder 2. So if you have sold a lot of, say, Corebridge, the QOL product, Builder Plus 3 is a direct competitor to the QOL Max Accum. Protection Builder IUL 2 is a direct competitor to the Value Plus Protector. And then they got this Smart Builder here. So what the Smart Builder is when you think about it, this product is designed completely different than the other two. This would probably be a more advantageous product in the bank channel or maybe a RIA type channel. The reason is that they have very little to no surrender charges on the product. Okay. So that sounds great and all, but the commission is like awful. So from the standpoint of what we do from our business, you're not really, taking home a big paycheck with the Smart Builder. So as you can see in the product notes, it says a single life flexible premium for early cash accumulation, designed for older age sales, business sales, and 1035 exchanges. Um, you'll find this a lot with people who are, or the prior version of the Smart Builder, they would try and like hide money. Like think like 529s or things like that. So people would shift money into a smart builder. It doesn't matter if it's a mech or not, because the idea is that they wanted to not have it included in FAFSA and things like that. Well, North American really smartened up to that. And to be quite frank, like, I talk about the compensation side, but the fact of the matter is that it really is just kind of there more for um, very few reasons. It's not like your normal player. So most of the times you'd see these really sold more in banks than anything, comparatively speaking. So I haven't really sold it. I haven't really found a need to sell it. The reason why, between all of us on this and whoever watches this, later on the YouTube, the reason why there are high surrender charges is because of heaped compensation for life insurance producers. If people were paid more like RIAs, assets under management, or things along those lines, then all the customers would have no surrender charges or very few, comparatively speaking, because the carriers aren't doling out a ton of money. So, um, that's just inside ball,
Okay.
some things like that. But I haven't really seen it as a product that people are dying to use, is the best way to put it. So I would probably stick with the Protection Builder and the Builder Plus from that standpoint. Um, and I can get you more detail on it. Obviously on their marketing site, they have information on it, but it's kind of a niche product. Oftentimes you'll see some carriers will have different niches. For example, say John Hancock has a niche for vitality. I think vitality is a joke because, people use or the carrier uses the gold premiums to make them look better, but I'm not getting gold. Why should I show that to people when it's a false expectation? Um, So there's stuff like that that I don't really like. So I would say Smart Builder is kind of that niche product. You won't find a huge reason for it. Um, so yeah, that was more or less the product question per se. Really, the other one, so we wanted to talk about real quick is trusts and wills. So
Sorry, Philip,
when
before we
yeah,
move on, before we move of product, I had one other question of product since we're in that area.
yeah, what's up?
At the lunch and learn the other day, we learned about trail from Colombia. What is
Columbus? What part of Columbus? Oh, the trails?
Yeah,
Okay. So when you look at, let's just pull up Columbus real quick. That's Cincy. All right. So Columbus, Index Explorer. I'm just gonna do sell for premium 100,000 face. Like I'm not doing anything to this. I'm just gonna click on calculate. For those who aren't familiar with Columbus, so at our Dallas Lunch and Learn, we had Columbus join us. So they did a carrier spot on product, and then I did a carrier spot on estate planning. So hence where some of these questions are coming from. So Columbus has a very cool story to their portfolio. First off, I'm a big fan of them because they only do S&P 500. More and more, I'm seeing companies with these volatility controlled indexes um, controlling any type of return that you would get. So they don't really come back impactful. So more and more, I like the cleanness of just doing the S&P 500. Or like Symmetra also has the NASDAQ. So you have tried and true returns. But so say for example's sake here, let's go to, we call it the money page, right? Um, all the way down. All right, so you'll see if you want to read this illustration, everybody puts their commission or target premium in different places, and they all call it something different. So, uh, Columbus, at a 45-year-old male solving for 100,000 death benefit, the annual premium is about 1154. Okay. And down here, you'll see this FD 2270. It is not 10,000. That's not, even though it says TP, which stands in a lot of cases as target premium, FD is 2270. That is a commissionable premium. Okay. So with every carrier that you talk about from a permanent sales standpoint, you would get paid off the 2270, or in this case, 1153.90 is the annual premium. So when it comes to target, it's the lesser of the premium or the target. So if we flipped it and said 3,000 was the premium, 2270 is the target, you'd get paid off of the target. But in this case, 1153, you get paid in the first year, and then another 1153 because it's a rolling 2-year target. So you would basically make up the delta or the difference, I should say, between what you paid here and what this target is. So that's typical target premium for life insurance policies. Okay, that is normal. Now, carriers will also have, after the commission has been fulfilled, so say in this case, it would actually start in year three, you would get renewals. Now, renewals are typically, you know, depending on carrier, 1 to 3% of whatever this number is, because that's the premium they're going to pay. And that usually lasts about to year 10. Well, Columbus actually extends their renewals out all the way to 12 years. So they give you 2 extra years of renewals, but starting after the anniversary of the second year, you get trails. Now, trails is a typical conversation that you would hear with a financial advisor. So if I have assets under management, say I work for Fidelity and I manage a $1 million portfolio. Well, I would get a 1% trail every year or $10,000 to manage that $1 million. Okay. So in this scenario, based on the cash growth and much like assets under management for financial advisors, as the assets grow, that 1% is on a higher number. Same thing here. You get a percentage based off of the account value as it continues to grow inside of the policy. So when you think about that, it provides a retention opportunity for you to want to maintain those policies and keep them active because those will continue. So as the cash grows, your trails get bigger. And the other thing is that if you have several policies, obviously your trails will get bigger because you'll have more policies, more cash value. But because it is a benefit on an enforced policy, if, for example's sake, the writing agent were to pass away, there's a beneficiary, i.e., let's say the spouse or the kids. So as long as this policy is active, trails are going to be paid out to the next person in line. So it's a way and it's genius on behalf of Columbus because it's going to do exactly what the mutual companies always do for whole life. They get paid recurring revenue off of keeping assets on the books. Well, same thing here. If you keep these assets growing, you're going to continue to get recurring revenue. So it's a mechanism or opportunity for the customer to keep a product, the agent to manage that client, and ultimately they get a little spiff for doing that. So typically in an agent sale, you get first year commission, and if it rolls into the second year, most carriers have a rolling 2-year target. And then on top of that, you get renewals for, let's say 10 or in this case 12 years. But then Columbus is the only carrier that I know actually giving you trails. So it's usually meant for assets under management. And I would say kudos to them because these are technically assets under management. So it's cash growth.
So,
So does
any
it
idea what percentage of that would be the trials?
That's a fun question. I don't know. But I would say like rule of thumb, something like 1% or 0.5%, something like that. It's nothing to write home about, especially in the beginning. But if you start to pad on several cases, or, Jay, I got the information back for the premium finance cases. So you think from that standpoint, those are big numbers and could equate to a lot of opportunity. So stuff like that can add up for sure. Um, and we did a $10 million case with them for estate planning. So that'll kick in because it's 2 years old now. So stuff like that, will start to accumulate. But
Coming back,
again, go ahead, Nana.
coming back to the 10 and 12 year on the premium side, I didn't quite get that. Does that mean that on most companies for the first 10 years we still keep getting some sort of a percentage on the premiums that are paid annually?
Yep. It's usually like 1 to 3%, depending on the carrier. Not on term. There's very few carriers, like a handful, like two, maybe three, that
Okay.
give you renewals on term. But for permanent, we'll keep the conversation easy. Usually it's about 10 years. So some of your cases, like we did with Corbridge, that you got the compensation even with 1035 exchange, all that stuff up front. Well, on the back end for the next, 9 years, you'll get, as they make an annual payment, you'll get 1 to 3% depending on the product. So you'll get something. And that's why it's interesting because a lot of people quit this industry after like a year, maybe two, and they don't realize that as you continue to make sales, as you continue to grow it, like I'll get $50 checks from NLG that I have no idea where it came from, so I had to go on their website, look it up and see what it is, and then ultimately figure out that it was a renewal on a case. So you'll start to get little bits and pieces here and there as you continue to build your practice. So, but with that, it still goes back to there's a reason for that, and we should always be doing policy reviews on the policies we've sold. Otherwise, someone else will come in and try and replace that. So you just have to think in perspective of, there's a perk why the company is trying to make sure you're still getting a little spiff, and it's to take care of the clients. So, at least for the 10 years till they recoup their money. So, but anyway, different story for a different day. But yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So so yeah, every carrier has their little unique niches, however you say it. But I think when it comes to like that family appeal, someone who's going to bend over backwards, I get that feeling from very few carriers. Some carriers are just a number. But there's a few carriers that I feel that give you that touchy, feely kind of emotional thing, and Columbus is one of them. So they do a great job, great partnership, and appreciated working with them so far. So if you guys haven't used them and you want to see some comparisons, we can always run through those. I will tell you that if you look at them from a volatility controlled index, like say, for example's sake, we can do fun numbers, okay? So I'm going to use my software here to run multi-carrier quickly. So let me look for my own example. Here I am, 45-year-old Phil. So we're going to look at, you know what? I'm going to go back and see. I think this is a LERP. Yep. Oops. Bear with me one sec. I'm trying not to make so many duplicates of myself. I think we got this here. All right. So we'll go to product type, illustration. We're going to try and find the least amount of death benefit. And I'm doing this quick. You can do this in WinFlex too for free, but I bought this software, so I might as well use it, right? So minimum face amount, no mech. I'm gonna do for 10 years, 20 or $10,000, 20 years, $10,000. So I'll stop at the age of 63. And if we do carrier default allocations, right, we're gonna look at S&P 500, but we're gonna look at carrier default allocations first, increasing for 20 years. And then we're going to look at income. We're going to start income at age 65 or year 47, and that'll stop at age 90. I'm solving for the max amount of income, and we're going to do loans, index loans, all that's going to be the norm. No riders or extra things, and it's me. So let's look at some products and some ideas here. So typically what you'd find is that at the top of the food chain of income-based sales, you'll typically see some of the major carriers would be Allianz, F&G. Um, so I'm going to add in Columbus on their Index Explorer Plus. We'll keep the Max Acume. This is not the QOL version, mind you. I'm working on getting that software in here. Path Setter for F&G, National Life Group, the Flex Life, Builder Plus 4. and we'll use Symetra, the accumulator, okay? So let's move forward. And what we're going to look at here is you want to focus on the distributions. I put distributions at age 70 because they're all going to be distributing by age 70. So we want to see who's going to give what per year for this customer who's putting 10,000 in for 20 years and then taking income at 65. So right now the lead dog is Allianz. Columbus is at 35. National is at 34. So now F&G has taken the cake, 41, 40. You got Corebridge up there with their MLSB, 100% MLSB. And then Symetra hasn't calculated yet, or it has, it's just not telling us. North American, so 4968, Allianz, and then so you'll see Columbus here at 35. Now, again, income is relative because all these prove is that ink sticks to paper. I'm going to put the accumulator up here real quick and see what they have. So it's 38,856. For some reason, it's not showing here. So it would be above Columbus as well. Okay, so when you look at these spreadsheets, okay, you'll see when every carrier does, they call it heat maps. Okay, so this is kind of like telling you the dirty laundry about insurance companies. They look and they say, all right, well, we want to be number one in income. So Allianz, F&G, North American, they will put their best foot forward with their volatility controlled index. So for example's sake, F&G might be putting forward their Morgan Stanley or their BlackRock account and not the S&P. North American has been getting in some trouble with their Fidelity account. So there's a RICO case right now for Midland, which is also part of North American or Salmon's group. So the Fidelity account is garbage, but people are catching on to it that it's not performing the way people thought it would. Allianz, in their current product, they divide it under four uh, index strategies, none in which are the true S&P 500. They're all volatility controlled indexes that are proprietary to the insurance company. So, strategically or statistically, what I've seen is they can perform, but most of the time they don't do as well as if you did the S&P. So, if we take a snapshot of this, we look at 41, 40, 40, 40, 38 for Symetra, 35, and 34. So, let's go back and we're just going to go back to the illustration design. And all I'm going to do in the policy options is I'm going to change this to the S&P as the default. That's all we're doing is changing that. Everything else is going to stay the same. So now I'm going to go back to the summary and we're going to have it rerun. So now you probably still won't see Columbus at number one, but you'll see a shakeup among the other carriers as to what the income is by just doing the S&P. So now Columbus is 35. That did not change. National dropped by $4,000 per month or per year. Allianz won't even run. I can fix that, but not a big deal. Corebridge 36 versus 35. If you did the QOL version, this would be less because you have living benefits on it, which does put a drag on the cash growth. 34 for F&G. North American 40K, so that's not bad. But you'll see 34, that was a tremendous drop. It dropped by over $7,000. Allianz won't even run. So I'd have to run this separately. However, what I would say is Allianz would probably be around the 34,000 range, and Corebridge 36 and 40. So what you'll see is that depending on what you're looking for, some carriers like North American still use uh, bonuses in their loans. And when you do the bonuses in the loans, that can impact your returns as well. So it does, and Corebridge does it as well. So truly plain vanilla, 10,000 over 20 years. So that's what, $200,000 investment. And then you have 35,000. I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's look at these top three, and I'm going to build a little presentation that can create something where, let's do this, do lerp, next, import. Instead of me doing math, I'm just going to have charts here that will do it for me. So inside the charts, we're going to add the cumulative premium, the annual loan. Now we want the, let's see, non-guaranteed net death benefit, non-guaranteed cash surrender value. Where's that? Net surrender value. And then we want the cumulative, that's the cumulative loan. So non-guaranteed surrender value, you'll see here, North American 468, Corebridge, Columbus, low. Non-guaranteed death benefit, and then cumulative loan. So you'll see that you're borrowing a lot more with North American because again they have those volatility index loans comparatively speaking. So you see Corebridge and Columbus are very close to the same. If I wanted to add one more in here would be the cumulative income. There we go. So cumulative income at the cusp, say at age 90, we pulled out a mil versus 960 versus 912. So it's not a huge difference between the three, but it just comes to manner of preference. Uh, you know, I like all three of these companies, but it's always good to diversify. Another thing that Columbus does have that the others don't is three table shaves up to 1 million up to age 70. So for those of us who work with clients who have a touch of the sugar, like diabetes, I got an 8.0 A1C as standard non-tobacco at Columbus. So definitely a good story and a good opportunity when it comes to underwriting. Doesn't mean they're the best at everything. You know, trust me, every carrier has their flaws. But what I really want to kind of strike home with is that once you change it to something that is just the S&P 500, you'll see that a lot of the carriers with their volatility controlled indexes will drop pretty significantly where Columbus didn't change at all. So I don't know if that went too far down the rabbit hole, but just wanted to gather your thoughts. People find that okay?
Quite
So if you
interesting.
change it all to the S&P, is that kind of a way to make the illustrations that you're making more apples to apples?
Yes and no, because kind of like what I showed you here, North American slid up to number one, but they also have, so for example's sake, you have a loan rate, say it's like 5%.
I was going to ask if
Well,
there's a way that you can set the loan rate when you're running illustrations like this to make them more comparable.
you can, you can. The most comparable would be standard loans, but no one would buy them if you did standard loans.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, these companies will have their volatility indexes, or they call them bonuses, to cheapen the index loan rate. So, like, say North America is 5%, they might give you 1.25% in a discount, if you will, but that can be stripped away. So that part's always going to be tough. I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So if, for example's sake, you went to a client and you showed them these top three options, most of the people are going to say, well, I'll take North American. It looks like it's going to be the best on paper. But you can also disclose to them, hey, the reason why I might pick, Y or Z might be for this reason. So North American will only give you 50K in living benefits if you have a heart attack or stroke. Corbridge and Columbus will give you significantly more. So there's the living benefit conversation and things like that too. So there's also rate integrity. So Columbus has S&P only, and the new rates are pretty much the old rates. So they all keep rate integrity on the products to allow the opportunity for the customer to win. So if the index is at 10% for the cap, it's new and old, and they share. So that's a big benefit for someone like that versus other companies who will drop the rate integrity, like a F&G and other companies have done in the past. So that's something too. Not always what you see at the front, but it's about servicing long term. And so illustrations are designed to show people an idea, but they're not designed to be gospel, is the best way to put it. Someone else had another question too? I heard it. All right. Well, if you're going to say something, let me know. So, yeah, so from the standpoint here, the LERP is the most highly contested conversation because again, its beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I could argue that the 7.02% will be higher than 668, so you should have more income. But then you have 6.63 here. Why is that different? So once again, it goes back to some of the underlying things, and the clients unfortunately don't see that and don't know that. The other problem is there's a lot of agents who aren't getting trained like this, right? They're just going into a meeting and someone says, "Here, show this to your client. Here's how you run it. Go with God," and everyone's going to be happy with it. And so there's situations like that too, where we have to just like my objective is to elevate everybody from the standpoint here so we can do better for the community. So ultimately understanding why, carriers do this stuff is to be at the top of a spreadsheet. So they would go to their GA. I'll pick on Crump because Crump is one of the biggest in the industry, and they work with a lot of organizations like World Financial Group. When you can't sell nationwide pack or trans, then you go to Crump, and someone might call them up and say, "Hey, give me, the top three for income," and then they would run a spreadsheet and send it out. But it's an order taking motion. Someone might say, "Well, throw Columbus in there too," because they like them for one reason or another. But in a lot of times in those situations, you find that it's the top price wins. And, North American, the reason why they have that RICO case is because of their Builder Plus 3. They put a heavy weight on the Fidelity account, and the Fidelity account is a dog with fleas. And now they're getting a lot of lashback for it for, showing returns that are not going to happen. So that's why I say, like, I would rather illustrate conservatively. If Phil Resch here came to me and said, "I want to put 20,000 in a year," say, "Well, let's start with 10,000, because I don't want you to, hate me later," kind of thing. So you have these conversations to temper the expectation of the client, but ultimately in the end it's going to make you look more reputable as well. So, but I also understand everyone's got to eat, so we just got to make sure we're doing the right thing first. um but yeah, so there's many different ways that people can run LERPs. Again, if you don't know what LERP is, life insurance retirement plan. um but I like my favorite conversations are really around, death benefit focused. Everyone wants to talk about income and accumulation, But death benefit focus, legacy, um, you wouldn't believe how many people out there have no idea that there's a protection-based IUL. And so you'll have these guys on internet forums slamming someone for selling a product that has like no cash in it, even though it's an IUL, it's a guaranteed IUL, and it's benefiting a customer from a different angle. And people are just ignorant to the fact that IUL has two sides of the coin because they're so used to hearing the income story. Um, my favorite thing is to talk to people in their mid 40s, early 50s about death benefit protection with long-term care. So if you think about it, that's one of the biggest things that can curb any type of plan is long-term care. So for example's sake, just kind of pivoting for a quick sec, I'm going to show you guys a site um, that I think is amazing. Genworth.com/cost of care. It builds this site out. So Genworth is the biggest provider of all long-term care cases. Put it in the chat for you guys to use anytime you want. So with it, they've come across all of the long-term care prices across the industry. Okay. So I'm going to pick on my good old roadie friend, and we'll just say Providence, Rhode Island, and it'll analyze all the costs for today for long-term care. So if you're talking to someone who needs in-home care, it's about 7,000 a month in care. Yeah, right? It is cool. Nursing home care. So if you want to spend your remaining days sitting with a new friend, or if you want a private room, you can print this to PDF. But let's say you're talking to someone in their 50s. Okay. We want to look at probably 30 years from now and look at the inflation. It's ridiculous. At home is 17. In private care, it's 31,000 a year. So, stuff like that, excuse me, monthly, annual, that makes way more sense. 205 or 375. I knew I was off by something. So when you think about it, the inflation cost of healthcare is ridiculous. So, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm glad you're working very hard to build and accumulate. What is that backstop against an unexpected turn of events, i.e., long-term care? So, a good question you can ask people about this as well is, Mr. Client, can you lift your spouse out of bed? If they can't lift themselves out of bed, can you lift them out of bed? If the answer is no, we need to have a conversation. Flip side, can they lift you out of bed? No, we also need to have this conversation. Now, from this scenario, something is better than nothing. Fitting inside someone's budget is important, so, and you'll see, so we'll just say New England can be rather pricey. Let's check good old Nashville, Tennessee, and see if we're dealing with the same type of issues. I just shaved off some money. So the South wins again. And let's look at Dallas because we got some Dallasites here. So Dallas wins by a landslide victory, 221. So once again, it depends on where you live. That can dictate the cost. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you spend some time on stuff like this because it's a different type of sale. So as people feel like they're comfortable in their retirement trajectory, the biggest thing that can knock them off their rails is long-term care. And how are you having that conversation? Not a lot of people like it, but from the standpoint of doing what it's supposed to do, that is, the other side of the coin to IULs. I, Phil Resch, have a Value Plus Protector from Corebridge with the living benefits. I was late to the game on getting the accelerated access solution rider, but carriers have long-term care chronic illness riders that you can attach. It's a pay-for rider. It's commissionable for you as a producer, but it gives dollar for dollar reduction. So NLG does not have that. Corebridge does. So if I had $1 million policy, it would give me 2% per month till the death benefit runs out. So yeah, that's a really cool rider. They call it the AAS, Accelerated Access Solution Rider. Um, it's a great rider. It's a chronic illness rider. So if you don't have your health license, you can sell a chronic illness rider. Um, and then on the flip side, John Hancock has an LTC rider. Nationwide has an LTC rider. Prudential has a chronic illness rider. So those are the kind of things that can really differentiate you from your the people you talk to. I'll use hoteliers as an example. They probably have enough money to heat their grandkids' pools, but do they have that protection? And again, the estate planning part, Nana, to kind of go back to your question about wills and trusts. You see how I did that? It was a full segue, right? That's that's skills. That's skills. So let's kind of explore that for a minute, right? When you want to talk about the benefits of wills and trusts, there is a benefit to a will. Everyone knows that. It keeps alignment, but it does involve probate. So let me see if I can find the article real quick. Um, napkin. There's something along the lines of there's no evidence of a napkin will. So there was something along the lines of she had like something under her couch that was to be disclosed as part of her actual will. I have to find it, but it was under her bed or under her couch, something along those lines. So, but what you'll see here is that even here, some of the stuff you'll see, will be released to the public. So a will is going to have documentation that everybody will see. So if Phil Resch passes away and he owed Jay some money, right? He passed away. Well, he kept claiming he's poor. He couldn't pay me back. And then you can look up the entire estate because even though it's a will, you're going to see who he gives the money to. And you could then start harassing people as a creditor. So when you talk about the idea of a trust, the idea of a trust helps bypass probate because when you pass, then the assets are aligned inside of, the trust. So the will moves it to the trust. The trust then has all the assets inside of there, and it can bypass the opportunity for a creditor to come see all your dirty laundry, so to speak. So even someone who may feel that they don't need it, there's a viable reason. And if we're going to sell a package for $400, $200 more gives them that extra sense of security. I think that's an important thing to just have the conversation around. But that being said, what we sell with the will, power of attorney, guardianship, um, and also the um,
Healthcare directive.
thank you. So if your spouse wants to pull the plug on you, I mean, if you want to be not resuscitated, your spouse can pull the plug, and that would be the healthcare directive inside of, the stuff that we offer from the will standpoint. But the trust is to really keep other people out of your business, avoiding probate, and people seeing all your goodies. So Nana, does that make sense?
Yes. Um, yes and no, Philip. Because
Okay.
I had
Let's.
this question from the a client that I'm dealing with, a smaller client, and he
Mhm.
said why do I need the trust? If I have the will in place, why do I still need a trust in place?
If he doesn't mind everyone seeing his stuff in probate, then he doesn't need the trust. If he wants that extra guarding and protection, and most of the time the customers that I know you talk to probably like that extra protection,
Mm-hmm.
that would make sense. So for an additional $200, you're keeping everyone out of your laundry, so to speak. So that's where the benefit comes in.
Got you. Okay, that
Yep,
makes a lot more sense now.
yep, yep.
Thank you for that.
No
Maybe,
problem. Go ahead,
maybe the
Jay.
other way to put in, most states has this kind of a rule that if someone don't have a trust, the default executor rights will be with the state. The probate court appoints an administrator who can play the role of an administrator. Before the court nominates the person, it may be like 6 months to 1 year or even beyond the person appointing the executor. So in this period, your family has to run behind court, and that's enough time. There's a lot of time for the creditors to come and claim, and probably because the claims are already made, where you have not protected, the chance of losing all your assets will be very high. So just avoid the people who don't belong to your family, the administrator, the probate court, lawyers, everybody. Rather, keep somebody within your family who really care for your assets, your family, your children.
Mm-hmm. See, teamwork right there. Love it. Love it. So, so yeah, I mean, that's a lot of great information, a lot of important stuff to really kind of manage. And, it's kind of funny. We went from income to long-term care to final will and testament. Yeah, Jessica, you had your hand up?
I've been
There
talking this whole time on mute. I'm so sorry.
you
No, I wanted to ask before we're done, I want to go back. I have a question about the zero premium load policy that we were talking about in the beginning from North American.
Sure.
So basically, with the zero premium load on there, that's really only saving the consumer on having to pay commission fees.
Pretty much, yeah.
Majority
So
premium load would
the,
be.
yeah, there's no surrender charges.
Yeah.
So, yep.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So, in trying to figure out when would be the right time to use one of those policies you had mentioned, like a 529 plan. So, would that be like a scenario where someone already has some kind of an asset that they've been accumulating money in and they just want to change the vehicle? Because if you have a larger premium and you move it over into something like that that has a lower premium load, but the premium amount is higher, then you would get a decent paycheck on it, I'm assuming, and then they would have access to be able to use those funds for like college or whatever. In the case of a 529 for college sooner without having to pay a surrender, would that be like a scenario where it would be appropriate to use a no load IUL?
Yeah, the idea would be like a lot of what these guys would use it for is to hide assets from the government. So like FAFSA, when they're doing a report, on your assets to figure out how much you can like use for, or how much you'll get for your kid to get like grants and scholarships and things like that. So the more money you have in your accounts, the less money you're going to get from Uncle Sam from that standpoint. So what people would do is they would, instead of doing like a 529 alternative like a IUL, they would just do a single pay into the smart builder.
Mhm.
But from my understanding, they caught on to that. So I don't think that that type of opportunity is available anymore. Because some people would try and put it on their kids, and you also have insurable interest and stuff like that too. So I think it got kind of knocked down. But let me see here. Smart Builder 3.
So, but what would be the benefit? Like, is there any benefit to using a policy like that with no load on it? Because you can do the same thing in or any other IUL, right? If you're
Yep.
trying to hide it from the IRS, you would get that benefit in any IUL. So I'm trying to understand what is the purpose of having a no load IUL? Like what is the benefit there? It doesn't seem like there's a benefit for the agent. Clearly the benefit for the consumer would be, a cheaper policy and being able to pull loans, but what scenario would that be ideal in where you wouldn't get a benefit anywhere else? Does that exist?
No, I haven't found a good reason to
Okay.
sell it, so like they'll talk buy sell concepts here and all this stuff, but you can do that with term, then convert it later. You
Mhm.
can do that with the builder or the protection. I have not found a good reason to sell that product, plain and
Okay.
simple.
That
You
answers my
know,
question completely.
yeah, yeah. Just say throw it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say, so cheap shameless plug, at the Great Collaboration, Gary Proco, who is our North American rep, will be there and he'll be talking about his products and have a booth. So, Jessica, I think you should register and come because it would be great to see you in person. But I understand and respect, you got kid and things like that. So, but they'll be there among several other carriers. Columbus will be there, Nana. So if you want to ask more questions about the trails, stuff like that, Corbridge, Symetra, Lafayette. We're going to talk about some cool stuff in the future, like teaser. If you talk to business owners and they want to develop a pension, um, we can do that through Lafayette. And the pension, every single year they put money in because it goes into a whole life plan. You get paid commission like first year commissions. So when you talk about pensions or you talk about, say, like a 412(e)(3) plan, um, that is, you can do up to like 266,000 or 268,000 in a 412(e)(3) plan. So if you can imagine getting with a bunch of organizations that are looking for pension type plans that you can offer, holy cow, great opportunity from that standpoint. I was talking with an agent this morning who's got a kid who's 28 years old, just a online TikToker or Instagram selling vitamin supplements, and he's making like 300,000 a month. And so, from that standpoint, we're talking about Will's Trust, and then it's him. He's the owner, the sole proprietor. There's no one else in the business. I was like, holy cow, we could do this mega pension plan, save him a ton of money, and get him moving in the right direction. So, the cool thing about our job is we have so many opportunities and options. The hard part about our job is we have so many options that some people can get analysis paralysis. So what I tell people all the time is that you'll consistently see products come out, stick with what you know. What you know is not bad. There's no bad product. Just make sure the delivery is appropriate and the opportunity to have the conversation with the customer. If they find value in it, then they're going to buy it and you gotta stick with your guns. So that's the big thing. Um, I will put this in the chat once again because I am a creature of habit. I'm a promoter at habit. So please, please, please register now if you haven't yet. Or there's some people, I'm not going to say John Jacob, who hasn't gotten his hotel room yet, unless you're staying with a friend. I'm just going to throw that out there. Um, but make sure you guys register for the event. There are 3 weeks left, and seating is limited, and the room rates are going to go up on the 18th. So please get your room as well. And man, it's going to be a fun time. So I'm really looking forward to it. Any last questions, comments? I know we're kind of getting to the end. John, did you want to say something? I was just joking with you, man.
Oh, no, it's cool. Yeah, cool. Just a quick question. Any plans that we can offer for income protection?
I mean, that's a broad strategy. You could do term insurance, you could do permanent insurance. So when you talk income, or are you talking about like you get sick or injured?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
from the job.
Yep. So two things. One, that's disability, traditional disability. And what you would have is if you go onto the Three Mark site, we partner with North Central DI. Todd Shield is the rep who could get you quotes, but you'll see request a DI quote. Okay.
All right.
Now, the materials here, I would rather say, let's see, Guide to Disability Insurance. Oh, let's see what this is. No, thank you. Um, Contacts your Three Mark. So I would email Todd directly. He's the man, the myth, the legend. But what you need for it is a few things because it's morbidity, not mortality. Okay. So age or date of birth, gender, occupation, salary. How much do they make a year, including bonuses? Do they have any current disability and any health issues? Now, for all of those, what Todd will do is he'll go to the several carriers and run quotes and he can walk you through them. The big perk on it, and when you talk about disability with customers, um, I use the job A, job B example, which Todd taught me, so I'm just passing it along to you guys.
All right.
If I had offered you two jobs, John, first job is 100,000. If you don't, but if you get sick or hurt, you get nothing. Job B, 98,600, but if you get sick or hurt, you'll get 60% tax free. Which would you pick?
Second
John,
option.
I think everyone would, and the reason is that for about 2 to 3% of your annual take-home salary, you can protect 60% tax free. Now, why 60%? Because most people, if they get sick or injured, or excuse me, their salary after taxes anyway is probably around 75 to 80%. So you can start with 60% conventionally with most carriers, but you can also stack on top of it with Lloyd's of London if someone wants 80%. But most carriers will go max of 60, 70%. And so if you have, say, a 40% benefit from the company, for example's sake, like they have group disability, then you would fill the gap of the additional 20% on top of that, or might be 25% because it's offered by the company, it's also taxed. But for those who haven't done DI before, it is a great market because let's say that the premium is 10 grand a year. You get basically upfront 50%. Okay, that part's not great. But you get renewals, say between 4 to 6%, give or take, roughly, for the entire duration of the contract to 65. So if the client's in their 40s, doctor, dentist, attorney, IT professionals, you think carpal tunnel, stuff like that. So that can give you the choice or conversation where you'll get paid consistent renewals. So that's the main game for DI. The first year isn't as sexy as life insurance or annuities, right? But the idea is that it's creating that consistent revenue for your business. Now, the cheap shameless plug is we have a guy, his name is Michael Sir. He's coming to the collaboration event and he has disability software. So it's like $100 a month, but the software basically makes it like dummy proof to sell a disability plan. So we don't detract from Todd Shield and North Central DI, giving you quotes and submitting the business, but we have tech software and pieces that you can have a conversation around at the event where they'll talk about stuff like that too. So we'll have insight. So the company that I do this with, we'll have Annuity Genius for annuities from a tech side. We'll have a life settlement company. We'll have um, a DI quoting system like company coming in. So we'll have a lot of tech. So if people are interested in stuff like that, we're gonna have a lot of great resources to help people grow their practice. Once again, just kind of, as we get closer, I'll be talking more about this. And of course, you got my dad here. He's coming, so I want to make it cool for him to see, right? Even though they spelled my name wrong, I guess I have to fix that. But other than that, we're kind of at the top of the hour. Anyone, first off, John, did that answer your question?
Yep, I got it. Thank you,
Okay,
Phil.
cool. Anyone have any last questions, comments? Anything you want me to share on next week or anything like that, stuff like that? Um,
I just dropped you a note for next week.
Annuities and who needs it and how to design it. Yeah, we can talk about annuities next week. It's not a problem. I'm always a fan of talking about those.
Okay.
So, great conversation, great opportunity. I will leave on that note then. So, thank you guys for showing up. Sorry I couldn't be here last week, but I was all across SoCal. Um, we can definitely do indexes, Jessica. That's not a problem. Um, how to code them? I don't know how to code them, but I know how to look them up. Oh, choose it. Yeah, okay. We can do that. So, good information. Thank you again. Sorry, I was in SoCal last week, and I just couldn't do it. So, appreciate the flexibility. We'll keep rocking and rolling. Anybody have any questions, give me a holler. But thank you again, guys, and have a great night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
See you.